Flora's POV, be careful. I cried as I scurried toward the maid, who was on the verge of falling down the stairs. Fortunately, I reached her in time. She looked up at me with wide, startled eyes. "Thank you so much, Mississippi. You are so kind," she said, bowing deeply. Pleased, I smiled warmly. "Of course. You're all like family to me." "Miss Flora," called a house servant as she hurried over, holding my phone. "It's Kayla. She's been trying to reach you." I accepted the phone and barely got it to my ear before Kayla's voice burst through the line. "Where have you been? I've been calling forever." "Sorry. I've been busy overseeing the decorations and everything else for tonight's celebration. I was supervising the preparations for the ceremony marking the return of my fiancé, Zack Larkin, the fiercest warrior in the East Hallow pack. Though my father was the alpha of our pack, Zack had contributed the most to its success. He made me so proud. I couldn't begin to express how much I loved him. "Oh, come on, Flora," Kayla said. "It's just Zack coming back from the border. It's not like it's the Alpha King." I froze mid-step. "The Alpha King?" I asked, my brow furrowed. Why would she be mentioning the Alpha King? "Yeah, guess what? Word is, he's coming to visit our pack soon. Aron Elton, the alpha of all alphas, ruler over countless realms, was coming to visit our pack. They say he's incredibly attractive," Kayla added in a sing-song voice. "The dreamiest of dreamy men will be here. Can you imagine? Dreamy? Maybe. Ruthless? Definitely." The stories were legendary. After a few more words of excitement from her, we ended the call, and I got back to the preparations, while thinking about the news she'd conveyed that my loyalty was to Zack, so other men, no matter how dreamy, didn't interest me. I also didn't understand why so many women seemed to fall for this Alpha King, considering his reputation for cruelty. Regardless, I had never met him and frankly I didn't care to. Why would I want to bother when I already had the man of my dreams, a man I'd fallen for at first sight? At the time I was 16, he was 19. Now I couldn't believe how quickly 3 years had flown by. Perhaps people lose track of time when they're in love. We weren't fated mates, but we didn't care about the mate bond. We had chosen each other, and before he departed, Zack left me with a promise that echoed in my heart. "When I get back, I'll give you the biggest wedding." That was 3 months ago, and it was the longest we'd ever been apart. My father had sent him to deal with rebel rogues at the border, but not before he approved our engagement. As the pack's beta, Zack had fulfilled his duty with honor, and now he was finally coming home. "Flora," one of the older maids caught my attention. "You'd better go and get ready," she said with a warm smile. While tapping her wrist, I nodded and headed to my bedroom suite. After a shower, I approached the gown I had chosen for the evening. As I was about to touch it, footsteps sounded outside my room. I assumed it was Milani, my lady's maid, who would no doubt urge me to hurry. As she entered, I smiled. "I'll change in a minute. Stop rushing me." But Milani wasn't wearing her usual smile. Her face was flushed, her expression tense. I frowned, turning to face her fully. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, then bowed her head. "Miss, Zack is waiting for you in the lobby of the pack house." "Zack is back." I breathed, excitement bubbling within me. I was about to change when Milani interrupted again. "Miss." Something in her voice made me pause. Her gaze flicked to mine, worried, almost anxious. "What is it?" I asked, my heart sinking slightly. She sighed before speaking carefully. "Zack brought a woman with him." Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. My breath caught and my heart skipped a beat. "Woman," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. Where had this woman come from? And what was her role in his life? "Maybe she's just a friend," I muttered, forcing myself to stay calm. Still, I rushed to the lobby, where the sight of Zack with a petite woman nestled in his arms brought me to a screeching halt. My chest tightened. "Please don't let this be what it looks like." Zack saw me, his face lighting up with a smile. He approached and took my hands in his. "Flora," he said gently, "I found your sister." I stared at him, stunned. My sister? I wasn't aware I had one. That I'd been adopted, yes, but my father had never mentioned another child. Nonetheless, as my gaze shifted to him, tears and recognition shone in his eyes. He approached her with open arms. "I finally found you, my dear," he said, embracing her tightly. His joy left me speechless as he turned to me. Take care of Alora, Flora, he said, his voice filled with emotion. She has suffered greatly. We need to make it up to her. I nodded, still reeling from the revelation. Then Alora turned to me, her voice trembling. Sister, you're so beautiful and capable. I'm so grateful to be here. I was about to comfort her, but Zack's hand slipped from mine and I froze as he moved to Alora, pulling her into his arms. It's not your fault, he murmured, patting her back. This is your home now. I stood there, watching him wipe her tears and offer her soft words of comfort. Welcome to the East Hallow Pack, he said warmly. I took a shaky breath, a sinking feeling in my chest. Something told me my life was about to change. Flora's POV. It had been 2 weeks since Alora joined our pack, and the whole pack seemed to revolve around her now. But that wasn't what bothered me. What really got under my skin were the comparisons people started to make between us. Alora was well-mannered and soft-hearted, traits that seemed to endear her to everyone. Even Melanie couldn't stop singing her praises. I wasn't jealous. Truly, I was happy for her. She was finally getting the care and attention she had missed out on for so long. But my father's behavior toward me had shifted, and that hurt. Before Alora's arrival, I had been the apple of his eye, his cherished daughter. Now it was as if I no longer existed. He ignored my words, my presence, as though I had never been his beloved child. And Zack had grown distant. I didn't know what had changed, but these past few weeks he seemed so far away. I had returned to my room earlier than usual after dinner, because I wanted to do something to entice Zack, to remind him of the bond we shared. Maybe tonight we could rekindle what felt lost. So I took a long, soothing shower, then slipped into the perfect nightgown. When I stepped out of the bathroom, a blush crept across my cheeks as I looked at Zack sitting on the bed, scrolling through his phone. Since our engagement, my father had allowed us to share the same bedroom, a decision that had once filled me with excitement. I walked toward the bed, drying my hair with a towel. Sitting on the opposite side, I felt Zack's attention shift. He lowered his phone, his gaze moving to my wet hair and then down to my nightgown. Placing his phone on the nightstand, he moved closer to me. My heart raced as his hand cupped my cheek, his thumb brushing gently against my skin. He leaned in and kissed my cheek before trailing soft kisses down my neck. You planned to seduce me, didn't you? He teased against my skin. That I bit my lip, pushing gently against his chest. What? He asked, his tone confused. That I met his eyes, hesitating before speaking. Why have you been so distant lately? Has someone else captured your attention? My question seemed to take him by surprise. His expression darkened, a bitter look crossing his face as he pulled away. What are you asking, Flora? Guilt washed over me as I saw the hurt in his eyes. I reached for his hands, but he pushed mine away. The rejection stung. Afraid of losing him, I wrapped my arms around him, holding him tightly. I'm sorry, he whispered. But please promise me you won't fall in love with someone else. He stiffened at my words, and I pulled back to look at him. He didn't reply. Instead, he pushed me gently onto the mattress and kissed me. I melted into the kiss, letting his touch erase my fears. Wrapping my arms around his neck, I pulled him closer. It had been so long since we'd been this intimate. As if sensing my need, Zack began unbuttoning his shirt. His hands moved to the ribbon of my nightgown, tugging at it with deliberate slowness. That I closed my eyes, surrendering to him, but just as he slipped the nightgown off my shoulders, his phone rang, its loud trill shattering the moment. Zack's attention shifting to the nightstand. With a sigh, he moved away and grabbed his phone. His brow furrowed while he read the screen. What is it? I asked, sitting up. He glanced at me apologetically. Sorry, dear. There's an emergency. Disappointment settled in my chest, but I nodded. Okay. Zack reached out, brushing a hand over my cheek. I'll be back as soon as it's handled. I promise. I forced a smile, watching as he left the room. Alone in bed, my thoughts drifted back to the beginning of our relationship. I was 10 years old when I got lost at the PAX border. Rogues had chased me, injuring me badly. I'd ended up in a coma, and when I woke, Zack was there by my side. That he had saved me. In that moment, I had fallen for him completely. I didn't know how long I lay there, waiting for Zack to return, before sleep finally claimed me. The next morning, the sound of the door closing woke me. I blinked, looking around the empty room. The faint sound of the shower running made me smile. Zack's back? I murmured, stretching lazily. I yawned and closed my eyes again, intending to sleep a little longer. But Zack's phone buzzed, pulling my attention to the bedside table. I sat up, glancing at the phone where it lay charging. Normally, I wouldn't have checked it, but a nagging feeling gnawed at me. Taking a deep breath, I picked up the phone.